Sweet. What is this? Episode 19? Holy cow.
19.
Yeah, man, we're almost at the milestone of 20. I'm Jason. Hi, everybody. This is Life in Tech.
I'm Dan, and we have two guests today, the Sultan and our good friend TK. And I guess we should say we still only have one trader on the call.
Thanks, man. I don't know if you ever wake up and put gloves on. So it would be inaccurate to say that the gloves are already off.
Yeah.
We had a fucking earthquake here last night, man.
Did you?
Yeah, dude, it's pretty big. Nothing came
How
off
big?
the wall. Nothing came off the walls. It was like 5 point something out in the desert between here and San Diego.
No. You should be used to that by now.
You know, man, I wonder why the bird. Dude, animals act strange when an earthquake is coming, right? And like I went to bed at I think 12:30, 1 o'clock, and the fucking birds were still like chirping like it was the middle of the day. And I kind of thought to myself, well, that's kind of strange, man. I mean, once in a while you hear some bats or an owl flying around or something, man, but these birds were just singing. I'm like, ooh, I wonder what's gonna happen. So I woke up. What?
It means run.
Well, I'm not gonna outrun an earthquake, man. I mean, but yes, you're right. It indicates something probably bad is gonna happen. So this earthquake woke me up, and I'm like, Marcia, stop shaking me. I'm not a baby. You don't have to rock me. I didn't realize it was an earthquake. Anyway, man. So I thought it'd be fun to talk about operating system fanaticism.
The religious wars are real.
Well, man, do you remember, like, when you and I, and TK, I'm curious how this was for you, because we have a nice strata of age groups here between the four of us. Well, Dan and I are pretty similar in our experience. TK, you're a little ahead of us, and Brandon's a little behind us.
Or a lot.
Wow.
I'm not bad for 65.
Like, do you remember how severe it was for, at least for us, between Linux in general, and Mac OS, well, shit, it wasn't even a thing then, right? And Windows was, oh, this is better, Windows is insecure, you got to use Linux and all that shit. And now, because you can't really say that, I think, the Linux distros fight amongst themselves. Like, I got into this weird little Twitter spat yesterday. It was interesting.
Yeah, it was kind of funny. I was laughing.
Do you have anything to add, Brandon? I know you drew a fucking diagram.
I drew a little illustration. You know, as far as Linux distributions go, you will find a lot of fanboy or fangirlism when it comes to a lot of the popular distributions out there. However, for users that consider themselves to be more advanced, they will fight tooth and nail to get their point across as to why their distribution is the distribution of choice. So it's always fun to find yourself in a chat room or forum where this hardcore praise will take place. I for one, love to go into an Arch IRC channel, support channel, just to hear them try to convince whatever person is getting ready to give up Arch and go back to their hold my hand distributions like Debian or Ubuntu.
They're worse than Scientology, man.
We are. We really
or
are.
Mormons.
Yeah.
So check this out, man. Because at least for me, I can speak for myself. When I got into Linux, it was all shit. It was all shit. Relative to, look, man, I want to be productive. So let's differentiate between like a stable platform that you can be productive from versus being a hobbyist and wanting to tinker. To me, those are two completely different things, right?
Okay, fair.
What do you think, Brandon?
Yeah, I agree. I mean, back when I first started diving into Linux, a lot of things didn't work. A lot of things didn't work well, and I still found myself dual booting operating systems in order to achieve basic tasks.
What do you think, TK?
Ask yourself this question. When did Linux take off? It took off when Ubuntu gained popularity in the mass market. Why? Because they followed the 3 simple rules of software. They were predictable, they were reliable, they were scalable, and they were repeatable as well. Right? And I was consulting and talking to some folks recently about. I know. I added one on the list. Because I get worked up from a business perspective, from a management perspective. I get worked up about this. I was talking to someone at a company. They roll their own distro of Linux, and I was like, why? And the reason is their chief executive officer is also a Linux geek, and he loves it, and that's fine. But that's not how you run a business. You need to have things, and the less time you have to spend arguing over this stuff, the quicker you can get to the business of running.
Yeah, well, and exactly, man. So let me give you some background on why I started this Twitter argument yesterday. I didn't seek to start it. I made a statement, and I just kind of threw some shit out there and see what would stick. And sure enough, some fish bought. I don't know how many times I've installed Arch and used it, right? And dude, it's unbearable. It's fucking unbearable to install. It totally reminds me of when I started with Linux, and I got started early with Gentoo when all you had was a stage 1 tarball, Linux from scratch, right? Really bootstrapping and having to build GCC yourself and go from there. You're talking like 3 or 4 days to install. And I have these fucking flashbacks, man, of what it was like to misassign an IRQ on a PCI expansion card, not have the right RAM, and you get fucking kernel panics. And listen, that's what happened to me yesterday. So it took me about 6 fucking times to get Arch bootable. All right? And once I get it bootable, I'm like, well, man, I want to be productive, so I need a desktop environment. So let me install Xorg. And during Xorg, it fucking kernel panics. And it wrecks it wrecks it, right? It wrecks it I have to manually go through the local repository, right? And delete the empty folders because the goddamn package management system can't do it itself. It can't tell that a kernel panicked, like in a log file, which you'd think there would be, right? And be like, oh, dude, we just need to roll this back and start over again. No. I had to go through and manually remove files and manually remove folders that were empty, and it knew they were empty because it told me they were empty. Right? I had to write a little sed script. I'm like, dude, this is horseshit. Dude, it probably took 5 minutes to download Ubuntu 16.04. 5 minutes, right? And it took another 5 minutes to write it to a USB stick and install it and be able to be productive.
That's
so
really
why the
slow
fuck?
USB speeds.
What's that?
Those are some really slow USB speeds.
I like being slow and careful, man. You know the saying. Do you want to run down the hill and fuck a bull? Or do you want to run down and fuck a bull?
I don't think Brandon's running or walking anywhere too quickly.
Oh, Jesus Christ, man. Those gloves. Right? And to your point, TK, to me, that's what matters. Now, that doesn't mean I don't want to tinker. That doesn't mean I'm not curious. But at some point, man, I want to do something other than tinker. And that's kind of what frustrates me with the fanaticism. And it is fanaticism, by the way. There's tons of science that has examined brain center activity and linked it directly to the same kind of activity that you see in religious fanatics. Right?
Well, I think that all four of us know one of the top minds in Linux in the planet. And he was set on not using Ubuntu. I mean, and he would put it, hey, you use these versions of Linux and pick a couple of them, or if you're a dumbass, you use Ubuntu. All right? And then we had, at a work experience we shared, the need to provide a Linux environment that was high functioning for a group of people that weren't professional computer guys and didn't want to be. Guess what he immediately adopted and thought was the best thing ever? Ubuntu, because it was tied to him getting paid.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah. I mean, that's, and a lot of this is, in that old adage, dudes that sit in their mom's basements drinking Yoo-hoo, they have time to go contemplate that. But folks that are out and about in the real world trying to make a living and everything like that, get me something that works. And I don't care whether it's Mac OS, I don't care if it's a variant of Linux, and if you want to roll the dice and take your chances with some version of Windows, I'm all for that too. All right? But, and again, it's what works for you. Trying to teach my father-in-law who's in his 80s how to use anything but the Windows machine he has, a bridge too far, and people can wax poetic about security or whatever. But again, trying to teach my 11-year-old how to do it, she's like, give me that Mac. Or her Chromebook that she has to use for school. She doesn't care. It's an appliance to get the information she wants. I think when you start, we talk about getting that for children, making them operating system agnostic, because my son just graduated high school, and when he was probably 12, 13, when he started to get into it, there were Linux machines, Windows boxes, and Apple products around the house. He would just pick one of them up, and you would start to see it didn't matter to him. He just needed to get where he wanted to go.
I think that's a great point, man. Looking at how far computing technology has come to the point where it's almost what I would call a hyper commodity. The device, the hardware itself is completely dispensable. I mean, how many of us change phones every 6 months? And it's not even a second thought really at this point.
No.
I don't know how many times I change laptops. I mean, within the course of a year.
It's not even just that. I mean, also ROMs and operating systems. I am constantly reinstalling and flashing new things every other week.
Yeah,
So,
and to go back to one of your points, TK, one of the things that Ubuntu does well, which is why it's in the top 5 on DistroWatch, always, is from one release to the next, it's the exact same thing, just with new cool shit.
Well, when you go through that installation process that you described with great angst, it puts in plain English, do you want to be able to do this? Do you want to be able to do that? And you don't have to be really invested in being a Linux developer or wanting to code in order to understand what you're asking to get involved in.
Yeah, well, and I think in this long vision I espouse from time to time, really long timelines and what our species needs to do to get out into the stars and all that shit. I think it's absolutely vital that we have this unified information collection and usage platform. And I personally don't care if it's the next version of Mac OS, Windows, or whatever. I don't give a shit. What matters to me is I can have a unified experience across everything I use. And that drives me mad. It drives me mad. This is one of the big reasons why, for instance, I got away from VMware. Because why do I have a completely different interface between Windows, Linux, and Mac? The software doesn't even look the same. Now, once you have the VM running, of course it does. That's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about the hypervisor interface, if you want to describe it that way.
the guest management.
Huh?
You're talking about the guest management window?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Why, man? Where I can take something like Evernote, which I don't think it's a fucking mistake that that's a web app, right? And it's the exact same interface on every platform.
Well, see, that's the thing. The internet is essentially that unified platform. I mean, no matter where you go, it's always within small error margins. It's still the same thing.
Yeah.
As opposed to different pieces of software for different operating systems, and it's you're always going to get something that has to change, something that has to fit the needs of that OS.
Well, I think the easiest way to tell where operating systems are going and how they've been devalued is, Linux, Unix, they were always free distros. Then Red Hat for enterprise, they had to make money, right? And now then Apple went along and says, hey, we're not going to charge for the operating system. Why? Because they want you using the platform, and they got other ways to productize all of their stuff. And now Windows, I had a Windows machine that had 8.1 on it. They just gave me the free upgrade to 10 because the operating system doesn't matter anymore. It's all the ancillary stuff and how they're going to productize that. And my kids have an expectation of connectivity like I had an expectation of fresh water when I was a child. It was just there, right? And so if you look in that model or that vein right now, you can't tell a young person they got to pay for some of this. They'll just go out and get it free from somewhere else. And Google and Apple have driven that by saying, hey, here, have our operating systems, or here's your window to the internet.
Guess it's a good thing you don't live in Detroit.
Well, and at the same time, what is charged for is getting infinitely cheaper. I mean, at what point, how many years away are we from having a Chromebook type setup, whether it's Chrome OS or Android OS, right, for a desktop type personal computing architecture, or even mobile devices, because they can do it, connecting into a VPS like Amazon Web Services, and I just compute from there. I mean, I can tell you this, and what led me to this recent experiment is that's what pretty much every data scientist does. Every data-driven researcher, that's what they do. They have a stripped down Linux desktop or a Mac, and they connect into Amazon Web Services, and that's where they do all the heavy computing. We're back to mainframe architecture.
Well, I think part of the reason why they want to do that as well is as a lot of them are taking the cue right from Apple in this case. If they can control the user experience, then we know that the end user, the customer, is going to be much happier. And so you very well may be correct. I mean, the Chromebook only comes for the most part with was it 32 gigs of storage space? It's small.
If that.
Right. I mean, it's not a lot.
It's a clamshell tablet.
Right. It's literally trying to make it to where all of your trying to access is in Google Drive. They give you some ungodly amount of storage space in the Google cloud environment because of that entire thing. That Chromebook is just your connection to the Google ecosystem, and they're trying to control the environment.
Well,
and I think that's great for the people that are peasants.
What the fuck do you mean by that?
Well, hold up. You wouldn't say peasant, yet you've got the Raspbian logo sitting on one of your monitors over there, Mr. I put Arch on my pie.
Well, that was just that one right there. I've got other one with Arch on it.
Yeah.
What do you mean by peasant, though, man? Because I find that intriguing. Because I think that's a beautiful computing future.
Right, for the people that we don't want to have to deal with on a day-to-day basis. You've got those that are the common folk. I mean, you should be getting used to this terminology now that you've bought a plantation.
Oh, wait.
There's the common folk.
Do you really think you're not a peasant because you like fucking around with data on a local drive?
Oh, no, that's not the reason why I know I'm not a peasant. That's just talking about the difference in that I don't want to have to deal with the common folk on a day-to-day basis like that. I want something that is, I can predict what their experience is going to be because I don't want to have to deal with the resolving of their issues on a day-to-day basis.
He's talking about the unwashed digital masses is probably the way that he really wanted to say that.
The people with the $5,000 Facebook machines.
Yeah, exactly. People I don't want to deal with.
I'm not looking to deal with their stuff.
But here's my question. Why don't you use it? What's inferior about it based on what you want to achieve?
I don't enjoy it. I'm not able to customize it to the way in which I am able to be the most productive. And that's what I enjoy. I work in a particular way. I'm not a part of the general norm. So there's a way in which I'm productive, which does not necessarily conform to Google's image or Apple's image or Microsoft's image. Yeah. But that's for me. But I'm not, that's the same reason why people make medicine that is going to essentially solve the norm, basically the masses, because they're like, hey, you're in that 80%, so this is going to work for that 80%. But there's always those that operate outside of the normal conditions.
Well, that comes down to the basic tenet of most people just want to go along to get along. And I have a need. I want to go find this information, and I want to be on my way. Whether you want to go see what's going on Facebook, whether you want to go buy something from Amazon, and how cheaply can I get that and accomplish what I want? And that's most people. I would say the four of us have very, considered and definite opinions on what we like, and some of them might be considered peculiar by others. But that's great because, if you want it, save your money, go buy what you want, or use the product. What I think you're going to see as you move forward, and it's based solely on education, is my daughter gets a Chromebook. She's a 6th grader, or just finished her 6th grade year. Everything she has, she does on that Chromebook for school. That's her window to the world. Now, she has a MacBook as well, and the only reason she uses that MacBook is she is cognizant enough to know that, hey, everything she does in that Chromebook, everybody at school can see what she does. Right? And seeing as how I'm just assuming she's not browsing internet porn or anything at 11 yet, that she has it's a touch of privacy, internal privacy mechanism that you like to see for people. Right? But by and large, she's like, yeah, whatever, I'll just go out to the Google and get it. Right? And same on mobile devices. There's little hey daddy, what about this? If I say I don't know, the phone comes out and she's Googling it. Right? So she Googles a lot of stuff.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So Brandon, what's in this diagram, man? Show us, dude. Because you're a big proponent of Arch, right?
I am. I love the simplicity of Arch. Essentially, the, the diagram's actually really stupid. I don't want to use it now.
So wait, you said the simplicity of Arch. So
Yet Pittman said difficulty earlier.
right. So I would say it's really somewhere in between. So
Well,
I've
okay.
been well. Hold on. Let me just share my experience because you turned me on to Arch, and there's a lot of things about it that I do like. I like many of the things, but I have had a significant amount of difficulties as well as some simplicity in things. The bootloader, for example. I got to tell you, I mean, I had to go through several different bootloaders in order to get something to work properly on my Lenovo laptop.
Right.
And it's there once now. I was easily able to put on many different bootloaders. However, not all of them worked, and it took me, it wasn't days, but it certainly took me hours. But once I got up and running, like I actually happen to like Pac-Man. And I don't know how you actually pronounce it, Yaourt or whatever, Yaourt. That is great for something that Pac-Man didn't already have everything in order to go ahead and automatically build my packages. I thought that was great. So I was simply able to build something that didn't necessarily turn out the way I wanted, but the difficulty came in the actual getting everything to work properly. But once I got it up and running, hell, I'm having a lot of fun with Arch.
When I say simplicity, I don't necessarily mean ease of use when it comes to installing and using the operating system. It is well known and well stated that this operating system is designed for people who have a better understanding of Linux in general. This isn't for your college student who's never messed around with any Linux distribution. It's meant for people who actually want to tinker and open it up more. When I say simplicity, what I'm really trying to get at is the fact that it's effectively a blank canvas, and that's the simple part of it. You get to design how you want your operating system to function, and how you want your environment to operate.
Wait, can I interrupt you real quick?
Sure.
Because you made the comment that it's known that Arch is for, let's say, advanced power users, right?
Right.
All right. So Arch's motto, and I'm quoting from their website, is Arch is a lightweight and flexible Linux trademark distribution that tries to keep it simple.
Tries to.
So
that's the key word. Tries to.
Right. But there's nothing in there to suggest that it's exclusive for power users. Go on.
Not on the main wiki, no. But if you go to any of the BBS forums that are over there, we have a noob corner for a reason. Those who are coming from what I like to commonly refer to as hold-by-hand distros, typically they've got a lot of questions to ask why they can't just simply do what it is they're used to doing, and they have to ask, in layman's terms, how do I do this? Help me, please. And you get kind of a mixed review when it comes to people who want to assist you. You either get those cynical assholes that are going to be, very snotty with you, and then you get those that are willing to go out of their way to help you. So, I mean, it's not the friendliest distribution out there. I don't want to try to confuse anyone with that. I mean, if you want to get involved with this, it's going to require effort.
What's in your diagram, man? Come on, show it.
I lost it.
Bullshit.
You lost
You just
it.
look down at it, you fucking liar.
You can't prove that. You can prove I looked down, but you don't know
We
it's
got
there.
it from your TV told us that you just put it down.
Well, and so the reason I'm driving at this is not that I think Arch is bad. I don't think Arch is bad. I have some preferences. I tend to think that Portage in Gentoo is, for me, I like the way it handles package management more than Pac-Man. I think Pac-Man's very brutal in the way you do upgrades and updates.
It's designed to literally just get everything done at once.
Well, and I dig it. It does a good job of it. It just, So this is what I mean, right? And this is the comment I made yesterday. Somebody said, well, it allows flexibility and tinkering. And I said, so when did the burden of maintenance become a badge of honor? I mean, so kind of what I question is, before it was Linux versus Windows, right? And it didn't matter which Linux you used. It didn't matter if you used Debian, Slackware, Gentoo. Nobody gave a shit. It was Linux. And now, because of the diffusion of use and responsibility, it's Arch versus Ubuntu. And somehow if you use Ubuntu, you're less.
Yeah.
I remember it being a big argument, and it still is just getting Linux to be desktop worthy. Right? I mean,
it still is. I mean, especially in the gaming community, people are, now that Steam OS is, kind of really hit the market big. More and more people are starting to argue, well, can I get more horsepower from my Linux box as opposed to if it was running Windows? And a lot of people are trying to achieve that right now. Some with great success, others with colossal failure.
This is what it reminds me of. I have a good friend that's a huge Star Wars geek, right? And I find it peculiar that he shits on new Star Wars content. Because
I actually don't. But it wasn't me this time. Because I actually like the new Star Wars.
Right? So he shits on certain content, and it's really just nostalgia, ego, and elitism. Because my point would be, well, if you're really a fan of that, then how is more content bad?
But Jason, that mindset, how that happens, that has very little to do specifically with Linux. Everybody does that in everything they have. Nostalgia is always, 2010, not even 2020. And so if you grew up liking or disliking one thing, I think those attitudes amplify the older you get. I mean, we used to joke around in our last job. I've never seen Star Wars, so I don't have an opinion on it. And it amazes me at how many people absolutely lose their minds over one thing or another about Star Wars.
Yeah. Well, I think it goes back to basic tribalism, right? And we need an adversary. And the point I was going to get at is there's this diffusion of the community now because it's exponentially larger than it was before. I mean, that's a good thing. And now it's big enough that if you're a Linux person, you don't have to fight Windows because there's other Linux people to fight, and it's easier. Instead of just saying, look, it's Linux, and that's good, and more people are using it, and look, maybe Ubuntu's not for me because of my usage requirements, that's fine. But at least more people are using Linux.
Yeah.
I think the other thing that you have to consider is a large portion of the Linux users, they're server maintainers. They're behind-the-scenes computer guys. And who gets all the adulation? The guy that makes the cool app, the guy that makes Angry Birds, things like that, which most of your hardcore Linux guys would argue, hey, that guy really didn't have to do a whole bunch, intellectually or technically to make that. He had to have some basic development skills, and he had a good idea that he was able to corral that up. And everybody naturally wants to be of value in the world. And so you start these, well, yeah, he didn't have to do that. Yeah, I know he made $1 gazillion doing that, but it really wasn't that difficult, right? And so you want to bring value to what you do, and especially when you start looking at computing, there's such a widely varied definition of people that compute that aren't just users, right? Everybody's a good app user. Very few people are good app developers. And I think there's a lot of ego that goes into that, especially when somebody feels like they should have been, making a lot more money or gotten a lot more adulation because what they technically do is more difficult.
Sure, I think it's a good point.
So, one of the reasons why I liked Arch is just coming from the security perspective. I had to have intent for everything I was putting on. When you start with any of the, like with Ubuntu or Windows or Mac OS X, I have to go back in and deny things. So everything is there, and I've got to deny by policy, rather than I'm starting off with deny and then permit by exception. And so, for me, from that security perspective, I want to know everything that's being put on, so that way I have more control over that. But again, it goes back to the general user community. They don't have the understanding as to what is good or what is bad, or nor do they know how to properly go out and do any threat modeling for their environment. So I can't expect them to do that, which is why I think the Google Chromebooks are going to be amazing, because it's a very small footprint, and there's just not a whole lot of data on that device. They're going to have to attack Google, and I think Google's got a couple people that are probably trained in protecting data.
Yeah.
We got a couple of bright fishes over there.
Yeah.
Well, and I think that's an excellent point, Matt, because that is one of the things I like about Gen 2 and ART, philosophically, is that, right, it's a base install just to get the system bootstrapped and running. And you can use it fairly well from that point by itself, depending on what your usage requirements are. But it's a different philosophy, right? Let me add what I need as I need it versus like the Ubuntu model for desktop, not server, where it installs everything it kind of thinks the average user needs from a general computing standpoint. And then if you're more of a power user and you want to customize, you have to go in and tear shit out.
Right, and that happened, maybe it was 10 years ago. Like 10 years ago, I was a big fan of, I still am a fan of Ubuntu for some things, but 10 years ago, Ubuntu didn't have all this bloat. Now, they've got a ton of bloatware because they're trying to appeal to the masses. And I think they're doing a good job of getting people to an alternative that is not Mac or Windows. I started my son off with Ubuntu. Now, he's not using Ubuntu. But he's starting with Arch. But I had him go through. He was using BSD, and talk about a pain in the ass to get everything up and running. BSD is that, but he was putting BSD on his laptop for a while, and then now recently he's using the Sultan's favorite distro, Black Arch, because he's heard me speak so poorly of Kali and that it teaches bad habits, that he goes, oh, well, let me try Black Arch. Well, and eventually, he'll probably go down the aspect of, I should probably go to something more similar, more Arch, and then put in each particular tool that he's most familiar with. Because when you give someone 1,000 choices, they really have no choice.
Speaking of BSD, real quick, did you see yesterday the news that Microsoft built and is releasing their own, I think it's free BSD?
Yes, I did.
It wasn't
part of me is very curious as to how that's going to operate. The other part of me is screaming, no, don't touch it.
Why?
It's Microsoft. I've got a very bad relationship with their products.
Why?
They typically just don't work very well for me. Even my work PC or work computer, I've got some Microsoft products on here that are constantly debated my workday's existence, just making me want to stab stuff.
So here's the reason why I think they're doing that. Because they need Azure to be able to function a lot more, we'll say, to be more competitive in the marketplace. Amazon has their own variant of Linux that they've basically built. We know what Google's doing. There's too much overhead with the straight Microsoft Windows operating system, and they've got to be able to get more bang for the buck in order to have Azure be more efficient in the long run.
Well, I think when you start talking about cloud computing like that, it's going to be a constant hybrid environment of in your enterprise, you have some small brick and mortar piece. You'll have an Azure deployment. You'll have an Amazon deployment. And I think as Amazon and Azure get more competitive with each other, both financially and everything, as those dollar amounts change, what cloud provider you're using will become fungible.
I think so. I think the market will pressure it that way. I totally agree. It'll be totally interchangeable at some point.
It shouldn't matter, right?
No.
It's stuff.
Mm-hmm. I should be able to take a Chromebook or a mobile device and point it at any provider I want at any given time and just fire it up and get the shit I need.
Right.
That's exactly right. It's all about content. In this case, for the people who are consuming the data, it shouldn't matter. Well, they're going to wind up fighting over content, and maybe Microsoft will get smart and just shit can that entire vSphere, not vSphere. What does Microsoft call their virtualization? It has got to be the worst thing I've ever seen.
No, VPC.
Hyper-V.
No, Hyper-V. Oh my gosh, that thing is so horrible.
Well, listen, man, I did some research last year with some colleagues at Cal Poly, and particularly what we were looking at was it can be a problem to provide a unified learning experience for software development in particular because of the difference in hardware that people have coming into a class. And so you have somebody that has a newer laptop because they come from money or they've worked hard to earn money to buy something modern, and they're fine running tools, right? Whereas somebody that comes from a more disadvantaged background or just doesn't have the economic capital to purchase modern hardware, and they have a really shitty learning experience, and it really negatively impacts the whole situation. So we started experimenting with cloud, and we did a study where we looked at Azure compared to AWS, and man, just the overhead penalty that Azure enforces on a virtual machine is significantly different than AWS, significantly different, which is unfortunate.
It's that crappy hypervisor that they're using.
I think so. I think it does a really poor job of managing overhead. Well, anyway, man, we'll get into technical garbage collection and shit. I don't want to talk about that. But look, man, you know, let me go back to an earlier point, and TK made it. We're well at a point where we have plenty of choice. You can get what you want pretty much on demand. I mean, look, man, I finally have decent bandwidth where I'm at in California, surprisingly, right? And come on, man, it took like 5 minutes to download a distro. It's so hyper commodity driven now. It takes nothing to try something, other than your own time. And you know, luckily, we're fortunate to have choice. So when we want to be productive, I can go to a laptop my Mac's right behind me. You can see it, right? And I can fire it up and I can work. And I like that. I like having different tools for different jobs that I can choose, rather than being forced, you know, even just 10 years ago, which isn't long. I have to choose Windows or, right? And if I want to dual boot, maybe I can get it to work with a shitty bootloader, but I still have to reboot, which is costing me minutes, you know?
Yeah, that's true. I mean, I guess 10 years ago, what was that? I would have been 2006. So I was probably using it's now called, you know, SUSE. So back then it was what, Mandrake. So I was using Mandrake Linux back then.
Yeah, I went Mandrake, Mandrivia, then you had SUSE, and now you have OpenSUSE.
Yeah, and
and Mint.
not a fan. I'm not a fan of SUSE. You know, I tried going back to it a little while ago because, you know, the SUSE people are a Microsoft partner, so you would think the Microsoft stuff would work better in their environment. Yeah, it didn't. Not even close. But I've been searching for a more Linux-like environment, and I think at least a couple of you know, I'm starting my own 30-day challenge of trying to use open source software for just about, you know, everything on my main laptop, which I've almost got everything. I was able to do my Adobe Connect session last night with no issues on my Archbox. It was a pain in the ass to properly get on an open source BIOS. That was not fun to find one that worked for that laptop.
Because you're doing free and open source, right?
No, I'm not doing free and open source. I'm not going that hardcore. I'm just doing things that are considered open source. So I'm using like LibreOffice on there. But just to start seeing the compatibility issues, can I work effectively in an open source environment?
You know
but I'm not doing FOSS. No, that's just too. I'm not about to read every single line of everything to determine whether or not it's false or not. I'm not going that hardcore.
When I did the 30-day thing last summer, a year ago, and I think I've said this before, I did FOSS, and for the most part, my day-to-day work wasn't that interrupted. Once I got everything assembled and up and running, I only had a couple issues, and they were significant enough for me for my job requirements at the time.
What were those issues, Jason?
In particular, it was Adobe Connect. Getting to Connect's fine, and logging in's fine. The problem I had is there's a proprietary plugin you need to be able to activate your camera, your microphone, your desktop sharing, and shit like that. And there was documentation to get it to work, and I could get it like maybe, let's say, to be fair, half working. it just wasn't reliable enough for me to be able to teach through it. It very well may be different now because that was a year ago. In fact, I'd probably wager that it is fixed.
When it comes
It's not fixed.
When it comes to browser plugins, a lot of things have been very slow coming to Linux. I mean, in fact, I remember when Netflix was not allowed to operate on Linux without you having to run Firefox and Wine or through a VM. Those were really your only options. And someone came out with a Netflix desktop port, which was a modified version of the Firefox browser that always entered in full screen. So they tried to pass it off as a full screen application. I remember when Google Chrome announced that we're now going to allow DRM material to be viewed in Linux under our browser. Now it's got to the point where we don't need to install any type of Flash plugins for Google Chrome. We don't need to use a lot of heavy Java plugins. We can just install Java natively on our systems, and Google Chrome will allow content to play. And now it's got to the point where DRM is no longer an issue with us. So as far as browser compatibility goes with third-party extensions that used to require things like Microsoft Silverlight, which I think we had our own variant of a plugin for that. Flash, we had our Pepper Flash for Google Chrome, and we had our OpenICE or whatever extension for Java. So I mean, we've come a long way in browser compatibility.
Well, and I think it'll get better as more and more people finally convert over HTML5 as a standard.
As we start to move to that standard, the internet has become an increasingly better place to visit.
Yeah. To finish answering TK's question real quick, so it was Adobe Connect, and then there was a data analysis tool that I used for research. It just doesn't exist. It doesn't exist outside of Mac or Windows. But I want to point out, to be fair, that those are choices of mine, right? It wasn't necessarily a limitation of the platform. I think it's fair to say, yeah, they don't have it because maybe we can create it. But those are choices I've made for my life that I could work around it given enough time.
Right.
So Jason, so the Adobe Connect issue is not fixed in Linux. So the big problem that I have is when all of a sudden I would go from desktop sharing back to unsharing and then trying to share my desktop again, it would crash every time.
Yeah,
so
that's exactly what I had.
Once you left sharing, you don't try and share again because you're going to crash, and that was a pain.
What browser are you trying this on, Dan?
This was in Mozilla.
Try compiling from the ArchUser repository a copy of Google Chrome or Chromium.
Yeah, I haven't tried that far just yet. But to also be fair, I've had that same issue on my Mac before as well. About 2 years ago, when we first had it, this same issue occurred for me.
Yeah, I was going to say that too. I've had that on my MacBook. Every 8 to 12 months, man, they regress a bug, and it does the exact same thing. On Chrome, I don't use Safari at all, but on Chrome and Firefox.
Right.
That sucks. It sounds like the software is shit.
It's a bug in the
engine. It is. It's Adobe.
Yeah.
Isn't that French? Isn't that French for shit?
Wow.
I don't know. I don't speak French.
Jason, weren't you just commenting about how many of your followers or viewers were French?
0.2%.
Good job, Dr. Hub.
Dr. Love.
So I don't know, man. I'm glad I have choice. I'm glad I'm in a fortunate enough position to be able to literally turn around and use two different computers with two different operating systems based on my need at the moment. And for the most part, I don't have any productivity hurdles. Me playing around with Arch yesterday was a choice, and it just got to a point where ego kicks in and you want to kick its ass and get it done, get it working, and then at some point you just have to say, look, now I'm tapping out. I can't waste any more time on this. I'll put it aside for another day. I don't know, man. I just, I understand the fanaticism, but at some point I hope we get past it. But there's my summary.
We won't. So long as ego exists.
I 8-10 years ago, I used to Linux every day, as it were, to make it a verb. And over the years, I've got to the point where I don't anymore. I'm trying to be productive and get things done and then move on with my life. And I had a little bit of free time the other day, so I pulled up a Lenovo I had and was going to put another distro on it. And I was just like, why am I doing this? I actually want to get back to something fun. I think people change over time, too, because I used to really enjoy that. Now, I don't have the time for it. If my son or somebody went and set it up, I'd use it, because I'm not a bigot or a snob about what operating system I use. But to sit here and go, hey, yeah, to get this to work, I got to do this. To get that to work, I got to do this. How about you give me something that just works?
Yeah.
Right? And I'll tell you, I'm not a power user for what I need anymore like that. But even taking courses, going to do a Coursera course because I'm interested in the content. If I have a Mac or I have a Windows machine, I'm off to the races and I don't have to worry about it. Not always the case if you're using Linux. And I'm not, I would say I'm in the majority where I just want it to work. And that's really where I think where cloud computing, you're pushing that Chromebook type experience or pushing that cloud-based experience is going to happen. I think you'll see in enterprise too, you'll see that big shift from virtualization, where you build this big architecture so that you can have, if you have a 2,000 person campus and you can have virtualized email and everything, that's all just going to be done out in the cloud and you're not going to think about it anymore.
Well, to add to that real quick, I think that what is powerful is software, and I'm kind of differentiating between software and the operating system, especially when we're looking at cloud, because we have progressed to a point at least where I can take something that even is a little arcane, like scientific computing with Python, or one of the scientific packages like R, and I can install the exact same thing on Windows, Mac, and Linux, and it's unified. And I don't have a problem switching between it because it's the exact same interface. It works the exact same way, and I get I'm hoping I get the same output, and that's kind of what I've been working on a little bit. But to me, that's a huge thing, because before, to do that, I had to be on Linux. And by before, I mean, quite some time ago. I could only do that on Linux. And now I can do it on any platform, and thank Christ, man. Thank Christ. I don't have to worry about it. I can just work.
So I'm still waiting to see Death Star's diagram. Where's it at?
I don't know, man. Both you guys took your video off, and now he muted himself, so I don't know what he's doing.
I think my video's on.
No, it's not.
Death Star, he's eating. I thought he was eating his diagram right now. I didn't want to say it.
I don't know.
Getting rid of the evidence.
Don't know why. For me, it was showing my video was on, but because like right now it's showing a couple of your videos off. But Death Star, where's the diagram?
Right here.
I don't see it. Hold it up to the camera.
Just kind of.
Let's see it. Let's see what we got.
No. It's all right. Basically, it was just a couple little squares that it was to illustrate the minimum amount of packages that you need in order to operate Arch Linux.
Okay, let's see it, Picasso.
Oh, you're an ass.
None of us are going to argue with that comment.
We might as well carry on, because next Friday.
No, it's way too small to even see on the camera anyways. But essentially...
I've had that complaint before.
Guess I walked into that one. But no, it was just to illustrate how effectively with Packstrap, base and base devel, and maybe graphics drivers, depending on whether or not you want to go the route of the desktop environment, what was required in order for it to operate. It was when I say blank canvas, people assume that it's literally nothing. Obviously, you have to have some small support in order to have your canvas up and running in the first place. That's one of my major arguments for why it is I advocate Arch use so much, and it's you get to do whatever the fuck you want, and there's no bloat whatsoever. It's literally a fresh start. That's why it is that I love it.
So, by the way, while you mention that, I got a quick question for you and Dan, because I know you guys have used Arch fairly recently. I don't know if you have, TK.
No.
Have you found a speed difference in the repositories? Because when I leave like the French ones at the top, it's fast as fuck. When I comment them out and use only US repos, it is dead fucking slow.
It depends on what you've got to go and and poke each repo that you've got in your list, and try to find different ones that are outside of the normal list.
But wait, Pac-Man should do that, right?
You just got to set your repo. You just got to set where you want them to point.
Right.
I know, but what I'm saying is, if you have a list of them, not only does it go off you.
Pac-Man doesn't have the ability to measure speed tests, though.
Why?
Pac-Man's just there to go, okay, this is a repository. Let's see if they have the necessary file that's being requested. If they do, let's pull it down.
But wait, so if I have let's say I have two, just for the sake of argument, and the first one's down, it can determine that and go to the next one, right?
Yes.
So it can sense.
It can it can check to see if a file is there. That's it. That's its entire job, is to see if a file is present.
It's not like BGP, where we're taking a look at the quality of the link to determine where it's going to go. It's an on or off.
I understand that. I'm getting at a point of how it ought to be.
Oh, I don't disagree with your ought to be.
No, it'd be great if it was able to determine the download speeds of certain servers and latency and all that other crap. That would be fantastic. In fact, if you want to get a hold of them and work on that project together, that'd be great.
Do you want to help me?
Look, I mean, you could just create a script to do that and then dynamically change your mirror list based on the quality of the link. I mean, that's...
Brandon, do you want to work on that with me?
Kinda.
It's a yes or no question, brother.
Yes.
All right, let's do it. I'll come out with a project plan.
Just to be clear, I have nothing of the French distro list in my stuff because I'm just not dealing with the French.
I tested it, man, and I'm like, fuck it, dude, it's way faster. I can't.
It's still France. Can't do it.
Oh, come on, man.
The only thing that is great about the French is that I think they're the only country that has basically said we've had enough with all of the radical Muslims. I think that's the only thing that they've done positively.
Dan, this does get recorded and put on YouTube for potentially the entire Earth.
I got that. But that's what they've done. They've said, look, I mean, the French were very liberal in allowing many people to come into their country. But with the recent attacks that have happened, I mean, they've taken a pretty hardline stance.
I want to take the time to say this to anybody who might be attending DEF CON this year. If you see me with this short hobbit in public and you decide that you want to touch him, give me notice first so I can take a step back.
I welcome anyone at DEF CON to try to put their hands on me. I welcome that.
You say that. There's some big mother suckers out there.
I am perfectly aware, but I welcome any one of them to try.
All right, man. I think we've gone too far.
And now the internet tough guys are out.
Yeah.
Like, Dan, let me put it to you this way. I'm a big dude, and even I'm not talking that kind of shit.
Hey, I'm just saying, if they want to try, they can certainly try.
It's like every time a white belt gets I think they can kick everybody's ass, man.
I don't think that I can kick everyone's ass. Yeah, I just know that someone's going to lose an eye or something along those lines.
No, I'm thinking it's more my daddy's going to sue you for this if you touch me. That's what I'm thinking is going on there.
I'm looking forward to a quiet, enjoyable DEF CON that finally for years I haven't been working, so I can actually go around and socialize and talk to people.
Oh, I'm not going there on anybody's behalf. I'm going there on my own dime this year. So.
Well, you don't have too much of a choice right now, Brandon.
Jesus
Honestly,
Christ, man.
I'm actually grateful it panned out this way. That way I don't have to go help out with a party or anything like that. I can just do whatever the fuck I want for a change.
Fuck yeah, man. Have a positive attitude.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Don't let the Hobbit troll you.
He tries. Dear God, does he try. The smile isn't because I'm eating crow. It's because I'm trying to bite my tongue.
All right, gentlemen. Anything else?
Arch is best.
For you. It's
I don't know.
How all of us, I mean, this is part of the human condition, like, right? TK, you were saying this earlier. We all do that. We all leave off that convenient little phrase to every fucking factual claim we make.
Yeah.
For me.
Well,
no, I think I actually started with that claim. I said that I enjoy making an environment that is convenient for me.
We know.
I'm not saying it's for everyone.
I'm glad you said that, Jason.
Oh, man. Every time Dan calls me, I get a shitload of fishing done in World of Warcraft.
That's good. At least it helps you with something.
Well, dude, I got to get warmed up for North Carolina.
This is true. This is true.
All right, gents. Man, this is a good podcast. Thank you for joining. Episode 19. I think we're done.
Yeah, this is great. TK, shout out. Thanks for coming on.
Thank you.
Much appreciated,
Thanks.
gents. All right, see you guys next time. Bye.